Hyakkimaru was cursed by the demons and was born without a body, which made his father leave him in the wild to go to another world. He manages to survive because of his unwavering strength and the will to live. He becomes the strongest demon hunter in the area who fights with prosthetic limbs. His only goal is to defeat all the demons and return his body, which was stolen from him. The greedy ruler Daigo Kagemitsu renounces the Buddha and makes a pact with 12 demons from hell. Kagemitsu wants to use the power of demons to rid his people of disease and hunger, and also to gain power over the entire country. In return, the demons take the ruler's firstborn son, which is why during the birth of the son, the child is struck by lightning, and the demons take a piece of the child's body. Then the child is left with only a skull, since the goddess of mercy stood up for him, to whose statue his mother Nui prayed. Thus, one of the demons failed to take part of the child's body, and therefore he remained alive. When Kagemitsu saw what was left of his firstborn, he ordered him to be disposed of immediately, calling his son the scraps of a demon. Immediately after this, he told his wife that it was okay, and they would have another child. As a result, the nanny took the child and carried him to the swamp, where she saw that the child wanted to live. She put him in a boat and sent him downstream, and the nanny herself was eaten by a demon similar to a praying mantis, which was then cut by the wandering monk Biwamaru. 16 years have passed. Dr. Jukai makes prosthetics for the dead so that they can be mourned and buried. It was also he who, 16 years ago, found the ruler's firstborn son sent along the river, whom he named Hyakkimaru. Next, we are shown the walking Hyakkimaru and his future assistant, the orphan and petty thief Dororo, who was taken by surprise by the bandits as he deceived them and took possession of their goods. Dororo uses the runaway technique, but the bandits find him near the bridge and take revenge for their goods. At the same time, Hyakkimaru appears on the bridge, who was about to fight the Daiki demon. However, the demon consumed the 3 bandits, but Hyakkimaru cut the bridge and destroyed the demon. After destroying this demon, Hyakkimaru's skin was restored. It turned out that in order for Hyakkimaru to restore his body, he needs to destroy all 12 demons with whom his father Kagemitsu entered into an agreement. And the rescued Dororo decides to go on a journey with Hyakkimaru. Next, Hyakkimaru catches fish, and Dororo cooks it over the fire. Dororo chats with him non-stop, but Hyakkimaru doesn't see or hear him, because due to the lack of organs, all he could see since childhood was the fire of the soul, and by colors he learned to determine who was in front of him: a demon, a human, or he's an Enin guy. It also turns out that he allowed Dororo to be next to him, since it was a second soul to which he was not indifferent. After lunch, Dororo suggested that Hyakkimaru go to the village that was being attacked by a monster. Their goal is to destroy this monster and get money for it. Arriving at the village and talking with Denkichi, the deputy head of the village, who agreed to pay for the destruction of the monster, he also told about Bandai, the head of the village, who injured her legs and could no longer move. In the evening, the guys met the spirit of the traveler Kanakozu, but Hyakkimaru did not touch him. In the morning, the guys met with Mrs. Bandai. It turned out that she is a demon. Hyakkimaru decided to attack her, but he was stopped and they were locked in a closet, where they met the monk Biwamaru, who also came to fight the monster, but when he was sleeping he was put in the closet. The light goes out and the demon's hand appears. Hyakkimaru damages it and jumps into the well with the monster, which is why they go outside straight to the house of the head of Bandai. Biwamaru then also confirms that the head is a demon. After her identity is revealed, she reveals herself completely and Hyakkimaru attacks her. Bandai begins to run away, but Hyakkimaru goes after her. 2 attacks were enough for him to destroy Bandai, and after that the spirit of Kanakozu also disappeared, and in its place was a lot of money. It turned out that when the demon Bandai captured the village and ate the first traveler, he had a lot of money. And without thinking twice, the residents realized how they could make money by taking money from the eaten travelers. And the man with the big head and the pilgrim's bell was that very first traveler. Further along the journey, Hyakkimaru wrote his name on the ground. Biwamaru read it and spoke it for Dororo. As a result, Hyakkimaru received a nervous system for destroying the Bandai demon. Next, we were shown the full story of Dr. Jukai. Once upon a time, he had a student, Kaname, for whom he put a prosthetic leg on his leg as a child, and after that Kaname decided to help the doctor. However, it was revealed that Jukai once worked in the service of the head of the Shiva family, and at that time Jukai was the one who destroyed Kaname's father. Then Kaname decides to destroy the teacher, But since Jukai had previously promised the wounded child a prosthesis, Kanane left the doctor alive. After this, Kanane took off his prosthetic leg, made by Jukai, and left in an unknown direction. Further, during a walk, Jukai finds little Hyakkimaru in a boat, who he takes with him. A whole year passes. During this time, a second son, Tahomaru, is born into the Kagemitsu family. Next, we are shown the now 7-year-old Hyakkimaru, who deftly handles prosthetics made by Jukai. Also, Jukai at this time realized that Hyakkimaru is what he should live for. While walking, Hyakkimaru is attacked by the demon Kametechi, who was attracted by the unusual powers of little Hyakkimaru. After this attack, Jukai realized that Hyakkimaru must learn self-defense. In the process of growing up, the boy destroys demons one after another, and after one of the destructions of the next monster, Hyakkimaru grew a leg. And Jukai realized that the guy's appearance was nothing more than a deal with demons. Next, Jukai gives the guy his family coat of arms, which was with him in the boat, and Hyakkimaru goes in search of the remaining demons to restore his body. Meanwhile, Biwamaru tells Dororo the story of how Hyakkimaru's body was lost due to a deal with demons, since the payment for this deal was Hyakkimaru's body. Well, at this time, Hyakkimaru is trying to test his nervous system. Next, the guys on their way meet Osushi, Tanasuke's sister, who has been waiting for her brother from the war for 5 years. Hyakkimaru notices in the distance a man with a demonic sword in his hands. This is a sword that has been possessed by the demon Nihiru, and the one who picks it up leaves behind only mountains of destroyed bodies. The current owner of the demonic sword turns out to be the same brother Tanasuke, whom Nihiru's sword causes to spill red liquid. Tanasuke and Hyakkimaru begin to fight. In battle, Tanasuke pierces Hyakkimaru's prosthetic leg with his sword and throws it away along with the sword, and Tanasuke himself falls from the cliff. Afterwards, Dororo finds a prosthetic sword and decides to throw the terrible sword away, but the sword takes control of him. When Hyakkimaru reached the prosthesis, Dororo and the sword had already evaporated. At the same time, Osushi found her brother who had fallen from a cliff. She brought him home and told her brother that she had prayed for him to come home alive. It also turned out that Tanasuke used this sword to destroy a bunch of people, and his head gave him this sword during the war. The more this sword absorbs red liquid, the sharper it becomes. As a result, due to the thirst for the red liquid, Tanasuke destroyed his head and his guards. It also turned out that his sister knows that he is keeping the entire village in fear with this sword. However, Tanasuke said that the sword was calling him and went in search of it. At the same time, Hyakkimaru found Dororo, and the sword forced the guy to attack his friend. However, Hyakkimaru managed to knock the sword out of Dororo's hands. This sword again fell into the hands of Tanasuke, and he went mad again. They began to fight, and as a result, Hyakkimaru cut the sword along with Tanasuke right in front of his sister. For defeating the demon Nihiru, Hyakkimaru regained his hearing. While Hyakkimaru was trying to cope with the surrounding sounds, they were attacked by the demon Yoba in the form of a giant bird. Hyakkimaru began to fight the demon, but took all the attacks due to the large number of interfering sounds. Suddenly, the monk Biwamaru appeared and destroyed the demon with his sword. Already in the morning, Hyakkimaru heard the girl Mio singing and followed the sound of her voice. When he met her, he almost fell, but Mio caught him. Then Dororo and Biwamaru arrived, and they all went together to the abandoned house where Mio lies. There the guys learned that Mio lives with orphans and disabled people, and at night she earns food and works for the Sakai clan. She receives food from them and sleeps during the day. An abandoned house is located near the battlefield of two warring clans, Sakai and Daigo. Biwamaru went to look for a path around the clan battlefield. During this search, the monk stumbles upon the demon Arijigoku, who has occupied a very good piece of land. Returning back, Biwamaru told everyone about this, and he and Hyakkimaru went to visit this demon. Also, in parallel with this, they showed Kagemitsu, whose country has been experiencing dry weather without rain for a month now, which is why the supplies of the country's residents are coming to an end. Meanwhile, having returned from work, Mayo learns that they will soon be able to move to a new place, and she decides to work for two clans at once in order to prepare for the move. Well, Dororo decides to go with her and help. However, he discovered how people from the Daigo clan were secluded with her, and it turned out that Mayo earns food at night with the help of an ancient profession. At the same time, Biwamaru and Hyakimaru fight the demon on Arigoku. During this fight, the demon bit off part of Hyakimaru's leg, and it turned out that Hyakimaru's voice returned. This happened after the destruction of the demon Yota. Afterwards, the monk and Hyakimaru retreated. Returning home, Mio found a bandaged Hyakimaru and began to care for him. Well, Dororo remembered what he saw at night and ran out of the house. Take ran after Dororo. He told him about Mio and the orphan's dream of having their own rice field. Next, when Mio went to work, she met Dororo and realized that he knew about her night work. She told him that she wasn't ashamed of it because it was all about survival. Afterwards, Dororo told Mio about his mother, and then she went to work. When she returned, Hyakimaru had already made himself a prosthetic and was on his feet. However, the next night, when Mio once again left for work, Hyakimaru went to fight the demon Arijigoku again. Dororo followed him. As a result, Hyakimaru destroyed the demon and his leg grew back. At the same time, Mio and the orphans were attacked by Daigo's samurai and destroyed everyone, as they thought that Mio was working as a spy for the Sakai clan. When Hyakimaru and Dororo returned to the abandoned house, they found destroyed orphans and an almost dead Mio, to whom Dororo wanted to run, but he was grabbed by the head of the squad and wanted to destroy the boy. However, Hyakimaru injured the head's hand along with his spear. As a result, Hyakimaru was overcome with rage and destroyed all the samurai. Afterwards, they buried Mio and the orphans and set off. Further on the way, the guys met the spider demon Jorogumo, with whom they began to fight. However, the demon managed to hide in the nearest village, since the demon can turn into a beautiful girl. Dororo and Hyakimaru also stayed in this village. Residents of the village said that people began to disappear at night, and a reward was announced in this village for the capture of the kidnapper. As a result, the demon was sheltered by the hard worker Yajiro. He named her Ohagi since he found her in Ohagi's flowers. He also fed her and then went to work. When he returned from work, he prepared dinner for her. The demon saw the guy letting go of the cockroach and thought he was strange. At night, the demon was going to eat the man, but the man was heroically saved by rice, which was tastier than any person. The next day, Yajiro suggested that Ohagi go and find a doctor. However, this village cannot be left so easily, and he suggested doing it at night. And in the end, it turned out that Yajiro is the same kidnapper of residents for whom they promised a reward. Yajiro helps the workers leave the village, as they often go to another world at the quarry, because they are made into slaves. Yajiro and Ohagi meet Dororo and Hyakimaru. In addition to this, they meet a guard squad. Afterwards, the spider sucks the strength out of the two guards, and he and Yajiro run away. Yajiro shows the spider a secret passage to the cave. The spider invited Yajiro to go with her, since he was discovered by the guards and he could no longer live in the village. However, unexpectedly, the guards catch up with them and Yajiro is damaged with arrows. The spider got angry and began to fight with the guards, and eventually destroyed them. Realizing that the monster has fallen in love with a human, Dororo and Hyakimaru allow Yajiro and Ohagi to hide in a secret cave. Further, the main characters on their way met a bride who was being prepared for sacrifice. Afterwards, they met the orphan Sarah, whose parents went to another world, so he now lives in the mountains. It turned out that Saru wants to save his sister Yun from marrying a monster. Dororo invited him to tell him everything he knew about this event. Next, Saru showed the village in the black cloud in which the monster Nokosarigumo lives. Often the monster forces villagers to offer him victims. However, Dororo calmed the guy down and said that they would help destroy the monster for a small fee. Afterwards, Saru handed him a piece of gold and said that later he would show where they could be found. The guys find Yu's sister and free her. However, the sister says that she herself decided to become a bride in order to save the villagers from monsters. Suddenly, a black mist monster appeared and ate the two assistants. It turned out that the fog was part of the demon, and therefore Hyakimaru saw a solid red veil and could not appreciate the demon itself. The monster attacked again and aimed at Sarah, but he was pushed away by his sister and the monster devoured her. After this, the centipede retreated. Saru went on to say that Yui is not his own sister, but she was kind to him and she is very similar to his mother. Afterwards, they prepared another victim, which was Dororo. The guys tried to burn the monster, but they didn't succeed. Then Hyakimaru joined them. and in order to find the monster, he began to shoot at it with a bow in order to determine its location by sound, which is why he was able to wound the demon. Then Dororo jumps on the monster's head, and as a result, by the sounds of Dororo, Hyakkimaru destroys the demon. After the destruction of this demon, Hyakkimaru's nose returned. Well, Dororo received a handful of sulfur as a reward, since Saru had no more gold. Further along the journey, Dororo becomes ill, and Hyakkimaru takes him on his shoulder. They meet the nun who treated Dororo. Dororo saw licorice flowers and said that he hated these flowers because they reminded him of his parents' departure to another world. Then Dororo's memories of his parents surfaced. His father was the head of a gang that fought against the samurai, and therefore samurai came to them who wanted to take revenge on the Hibikuro detachment, the head of which was his father. However, the samurai were defeated. During Hibikuro's next attack on the samurai, they were betrayed by his father's friend Itachi, and as a result, his father's entire squad was defeated. Itachi betrayed his father because he rejected the possibility of the squad joining the samurai. Dororo's father and mother were spared, and they set off on their journey, where they came across a village that was being burned by samurai. One of the samurai noticed a long spear in the hands of Dororo's father. He realized that one of the gang members was standing in front of him. Then the samurai attacked him, but during the battle, the father killed almost the entire detachment of samurai. However, a spear flew into his back, and as a result, Dororo lost his father, leaving only his mother. Then they found a place where they distribute food, where they met the same Itachi. Dororo wanted to throw a stone at his face, but his mother stopped him. Since the food was running out and Dororo's mother did not have a plate, she asked for hot food to be poured into her hands so that her son could eat. Then the weakened mother fell as they passed through a field of licorice flowers, and mother went into another world. Already in real time, Dororo recovered after 3 days and hit the road. And the nun briefly called Dororo a girl, which looked very strange. Meanwhile, Keiichimitsu was informed that one of his troops had been defeated by a guy with swords instead of hands. This was reported by the surviving one-armed commander of this detachment. Afterwards, Keiichimitsu gave a secret task to his subordinate to find this guy with swords instead of hands. This order was also heard by Tahomaru. Keiichimitsu went to the Hall of Hell, where he found a considerable number of demonic statues cut in half. Keiichimitsu realized that his son was still alive and was trying to get his body parts back. Tahomaru already at this time ordered Matsu and Hyogo to capture Daigo's subordinate, who was given a secret mission, as he wants to interrogate him. However, when Tahomaru asked him a question, "Who is this child with prosthetics?" the subordinate tried to bite off his tongue, but he failed. Then Tahomaru came to his father and asked a question. Why is his father looking for this guy? And he also asked, what does the headless figurine that his mother prays for have anything to do with this? But Keiichimitsu refused to answer and ended the conversation, causing Tahomaru to ride off in anger. Next, we were shown the demon Bakemonagani, who lives in the lands of Daigo. This demon is terrorizing a nearby fishing village that Tahomaru passes by. Seeing people asking for help as they are being eaten one by a monster, Tahomaru decides to deal with the crab monster. In this regard, he and his people go to the lake, where they meet that same monster. Tahomaru manages to damage the giant crab's claw, but the crab manages to escape. Already on the shore, Tahomaru figured out how they could defeat the monster. They lure the crab into a shallower lake and release water from it, which is why the crab is left without water, and they begin to attack it together. However, the crab broke the dam, and the water filled the lake again, and the crab began to eat people. At the last moment, Hyakkimaru appeared and destroyed the crab. Tahomaru asked Hyakkimaru who he was, but Dororo responded by asking him to thank them for saving his subordinate. He also said that brother Hyakkimaru is blind and sees only souls, and that they travel around the country and destroy monsters. After they received the reward and Tahomaru asked the name of the warrior, Hyakkimaru said his name. Afterwards, Dororo and brother left. Then they reached the next village, where a woman called Hyakkimaru a child of demons. There they saw a performance of Daigo Keiichimitsu defeating a demon. They also met Biwamaru and told him everything that happened to them. Afterwards, they heard the story about the Banman Curse and about the Banman Wall, where the Asakura clan destroys Daigo's spies. There they met the guy Sukuroku, who said that if they went beyond this wall, they would be destroyed by the hands of the sentinels of the Asakura clan. Dororo said that they came here to destroy the monster Baman. At the same time, Tahamaru's subordinates Mutsu and Hyogo told Keijimitsu that they had met a boy with prosthetics. After this, Keijimitsu decides to find his lost son and destroy him, thereby preserving the prosperity of his country. Tahamaru once again heard everything that was happening. Meanwhile, Dororo and Hyakkimaru waited until nightfall and met the demon Kyubi in the form of a fire fox. Hyakkimaru began to fight him, but the demon multiplied himself in the form of a fox and then gathered into a huge fiery forest. Then the fox grabbed Hyakkimaru, but he escaped and injured the demon's paw. At the same time, Sukuroku escapes behind the Baman wall, and Dororo goes after him, where they are captured. Daigo Keijimitsu appears near the wall. Hyakkimaru asks who is standing in front of him, but in response, Keijimitsu asks why he is still alive, and calls him the premature son of a demon. Then the ruler orders Hyakkimaru to be destroyed, but Hyakkimaru easily breaks away from his pursuers. Meanwhile, Dororo and Sukuroku were put in a cage. There, Dororo noticed on one of the prisoners the same coat of arms as Hyakkimaru's, and it turned out that this is the family coat of arms of the Daigo clan. Dororo then escapes from prison through a hole in the ceiling of the cave. At this time, Tohamaru learns from a crazy woman about a child without body parts. It turned out to be the girl who was at the birth of Hyakkimaru. Afterwards, he came to his mother and asked if she knew anything about this. Then the father and mother told Tohamaru the whole truth about their firstborn. Then Hyakkimaru himself appeared. However, they immediately began to attack him and he had to retreat. Next, Tohamaru and his assistants went to the Hall of Hell. There they saw that the demon statues were partially destroyed. At the same time, Dororo, who escaped from prison, finds Hyakkimaru and tells him about the coat of arms. And then they realized that both Keijimitsu and his wife were Hyakkimaru's parents. After they went to save Sukuroku, it turns out he was already tied in the wall of Baman, and there the battle of the two clans began. On top of this, a fox demon appeared. After Dororo and Hyakkimaru arrived at the wall, Tohamaru also arrived there. He said that he came here to destroy his brother, because if this is not done, then famine and devastation will begin in the country. The brothers begin to fight, and Dororo goes to save Sukuroku. However, the demon Kyubi targets the guys, and at the last moment, Hyakkimaru damages Tohamaru's eye, and also manages to destroy the demon fox. Hyakkimaru and Tohamaru's mother arrives and says that she cannot save her eldest son, and therefore makes a self-sacrifice to the demons. She sacrifices herself, and the Baman wall is destroyed, and Keijimitsu and his subordinates retreat. Next, the children had a meeting with the spirit of Okaku, who served the demon Hakumen Fudo, who had taken possession of the Buddha statue. This spirit can transform into people close to travelers, but this time it turned into Dororo's mother, and the house where the heroes decided to spend the night turned out to be Okaku's house. In the end, she fed them, and then told them the story about the statue without a face. It later turned out that she mixed a sleeping drug into the porridge, which caused the heroes to lose consciousness. She also told the story, and it turned out that this faceless statue was possessed by the vengeful demon Hakumen Fudo, who so wanted a face on the statue that he even resurrected the sculptor and forced him to guide travelers to take their faces. As a result, the spirit dragged Hyakkimaru to the statue and left Dororo in the house. However, Dororo came to his senses and went to save his brother. Dororo managed to convince Okaku so that the spirit would no longer serve the demon. Hyakkimaru then damages the demon's face, and they set off again. Next, they went to the hot springs, where they again met Biwamaru. Also there, they discovered a card on Dororo's back, which only appears when Dororo's skin is heated. It turned out that this card was left on Dororo's back by his father. The second part of the map was on the mother's back. Before leaving for another world, she made Dororo remember its fragment on her back. However, Dororo did not understand what to do with this map, and the guys hit the road. Further, near the village of Sabame, they met the spirit of children, who began to haunt them. Afterwards, they met the head of Sabame near the burnt temple. He invited them to his village to listen to stories about their travels. Sabame told about the demon in the burned women's temple. At night, the children were attacked by the child Meimeyanba, with whom, as it turned out, Sabame had made an agreement, and then the demon himself appeared and took the caterpillar. The next day, after breakfast, Dororo goes for a walk around the village and asks the villagers about the demon. Walking around the village, he sees strangely happy people. Dororo finds a barn where he is thrown into a secret basement. Caterpillars try to eat Dororo in the dungeon, but he is saved by the spirit of children. Also through the children, Dororo learned that the nun and the children were destroyed by the villagers. Afterwards, Dororo goes to look for Hyakkimaru. Meanwhile, Sabame tells Hyakkimaru about the demon and that he will protect his village and its inhabitants with all his might. Hyakkimaru then begins to fight the moth demon Meimayonba. The moth stuck his claw into it and lifted it up, but Hyakkimaru injured his paw and fell from a 30-meter height, causing him to lose consciousness. Also, because of one of the moths, a fire broke out and the entire village was engulfed in flames. When Hyakkimaru came to his senses, Dororo found him and told him that he had found the oil that was used to burn the monastery, and that through the spirit children he learned that the inhabitants had burned the monastery. Hyakkimaru tried to stand up, but his prosthetic leg broke. Then Hyakkimaru tied a stick to his leg and attacked the demon on the lake and destroyed it, which is why his spine returned. Next, Dororo and Hyakkimaru saw a burned-out village and Dororo thought that maybe they were doing something wrong. But Hyakkimaru said that he didn't care, because it was important for him to destroy all the demons. Because of this, Dororo and Hyakkimaru went their separate ways. However, when Hyakkimaru came to his senses, Dororo was no longer there. Walking further, Dororo finds Itachi and his squad. Itachi holds in his hands a piece of the map that was on Dororo's mother's back. He found the guy to find out where the second part of the map was. Itachi realizes that she is somewhere on his back. Dororo showed his back, but Itachi didn't see the card there, but he realized that Dororo had it in his head, and so they took the guy with them. It was also revealed that Itachi copied the map from the excavated body of Dororo's mother. Arriving at the place, Itachi untied Dororo's hands and told him that if they found the treasure, he would give part of it to the guy. They also need boats to get to the cape, but there are only broken boats on the shore. Shiranui immediately appeared and offered his help to smuggle them, but asked for money for this. It turns out that Shiranui's boats are tied to trained sharks Chiromaru and Saburomaru, who are Shiranui's family. He also said that he feeds his sharks human flesh. Previously, these were inanimate bodies, but now he feeds them with living people, and so it was a trap to feed the sharks. Shiranui ordered the sharks to attack, and they began to devour the people on the boats. They left one boat for the evening, and one of the sharks remained to guard it. Dororo motivated everyone in the boat to never give up. He tied a rope to himself and jumped into the water to lure the shark. On a signal, he was pulled out. When the shark appeared above the water, the bandits counterattacked it with their katanas. The bandits managed to swim to the cape, and there they threw the lifeless shark ashore. Then Shiranui appeared and saw the defeated Saburomaru. The bandits immediately appeared and took revenge on the guy. Itachi returned to the idea of finding the treasure. The bandits were looking for the map on Dororo's body, and it turned out that Dororo was not a guy, but a girl. When they got close to the fire, they discovered a map on her back, after which they tied up Dororo and went looking for treasure. Meanwhile, Dr. Jukai is on the battlefield restoring the limbs of fallen warriors using prosthetics. Suddenly, a demon appears and attacks the traveler who is next to Jukai. However, Hyakkimaru appears and destroys the demon. Hyakkimaru came to Jukai because he had lost track of Dororo. Jukai was very surprised when he saw Hyakkimaru's skin and the fact that he could hear. Hyakkimaru said that he needed a leg in order to fight. Hyakkimaru also said that he found his parents and that his father fed him to demons. After this story, Jukai said that the burden for the country lies with his father Kagemitsu, and Jukai does not want to take on such a burden for destroying the country after Hyakkimaru's restoration. Then a landslide occurs and the entrance to the cave is blocked, which is why Hyakkimaru and Jukai are walled up in the cave. Meanwhile, Tahomaru has changed greatly and has become indifferent to his mother, who has just recovered. However, he did not want to see her since he went to fight the demon, and when he returns, he will visit her. At this time, Kajunitsu came to his mother. Nui told him about the figurines of the Goddess of Mercy, whose head was damaged when Hyakkimaru lost part of his body. She thinks that then the goddess gave her head in exchange for the head of the firstborn, since all he had left was his head. And now Nui is sure that Hyakkimaru will regain his body, and fertility will leave these lands. Kagemitsu said that his wife thinks too much, and it would be better to rest and get better. Afterwards, the head was informed that they had seen a guy who was with Hyakimaru. Kajimitsu ordered Tahamaru to be sent there, but he was not at the estate because he had left to deal with the rat demon. Having dealt with this demon, Tahamaru sets out to find Hyakimaru. At this time, Hyakimaru and Jukai had already emerged from the cave and saw the demonic Ayakashidi tree, from the fruits of which faceless creatures with huge fangs, the body of a lion, and the paws of a monkey are born. Hyakimaru began to destroy these creatures. Then he climbed the tree and destroyed its core. Next, Hyakimaru got ready to set off and called Jukai Mom, since he didn't know his name. Meanwhile, Shironui woke up and ordered Jiromaru to devour all the offenders. The shark jumped ashore and began to eat Saburomaru's brother, which is why it turned white and was able to move on land. Jiromaru aimed at the tied-up Dororo. However, Hyakimaru suddenly appeared and damaged the shark, but it turned out to be a demon and continued to attack. Hyakimaru was able to destroy the demon with several blows of his swords. For destroying the shark, Hyakimaru got his left leg back. Afterwards, the guys went after Itaki and his squad, who by this time had already found several caves where a couple of bandits blew themselves up. Then they saw an approaching ship led by Tahamaru. He landed with several detachments and ordered the destruction of everyone who poses a threat to Daigo's people. Afterwards, Dororo and Hyakimaru met the wounded bandits, and they came up with a plan to raise Daigo's warriors into the air. However, Tahamaru was ahead of them and caught them by surprise. Tahamaru, along with Hyogo and Mutsu, began to attack Hyakimaru, while the bandits retreated. As a result, Mutsu injured Hyakimaru's back, and after a joint attack, Tahamaru and Hyogo broke one of Hyakimaru's hand swords. At this time, Itachi's squad was attacked with bows, and all of them were killed, except for Dororo and the barely alive Itachi. As a result, Dororo pushed a bunch of stone statues with one awkward movement, and they flew down the mountain straight towards Daigo's warriors. Then the amazed Itachi asked Dororo to show him the treasures before leaving for the other world, but Shiranui appeared and, with the help of TNT, promised to send everyone to the next world. He destroyed himself, causing a landslide that destroyed almost all of Daigo's warriors. Because of this, Dororo and Itachi fell into a cave, where the very treasure of Dororo's father turned out to be. Without having time to touch the gold, Itachi went to the next world. At this time, Tahamaru and his assistants got out from under the rubble and went back to their home. Afterwards, Dororo found Hyakimaru, and Dororo decided that she didn't need the treasures yet, let them stay here, and they set off again. Next, the heroes went in search of the blacksmith Munetsun, so that he could repair Hyakimaru's swords. They found a blacksmith and his daughter on the outskirts of the village, and together with them they went to the temple to cleanse the swords. It also turned out that Okawa fell in love with Hyakimaru, and therefore even tried several times to attract his attention to herself. It was also revealed that the demon Amanojaku lives on the roof of the temple, who makes people say the opposite. Having fallen under the spell of the demon, Hyakimaru, when asked about continuing the journey, refused and said that he would not restore the body. And he also said that there was no longer any reason for him and Dororo to travel together. And when Okawa asked if he would marry her, again because of the demon's spell, Hyakimaru answered positively. And therefore Okawa told the whole village that she would marry Hyakimaru, and the villagers began to come to her and wish all sorts of nonsense. It turned out that everyone in this strange village says exactly the opposite of what they think. Dororo realized that something was wrong here and decided to throw away Hyakimaru's swords. She snuck into the forge at night, where the swords are kept, and unexpectedly met a blacksmith there, and then she told him everything. In the morning, Dororo began to speak again as before. The demon's spell disappeared. Dororo realized that all the strange things started from the temple. Arriving there, she saw a demon on the roof. Okawa and Hyakimaru also came there. Dororo asked Hyakimaru to grab the demon, but the demon managed to cast a spell on Hyakimaru, which is why he began to attack Dororo. Suddenly, a blacksmith appeared and knocked out the demon Amanojaku. Hyakimaru then hugged Dororo and apologized to her. The wedding was also canceled because it was all a demon's spell. Then they hit the road again. At the same time, locusts swept across Daigo's lands along with a terrible drought. When Tahamaru and his assistants traveled around the lands, they discovered depleted fields. Tahamaru realizes that this is all happening because they were unable to destroy Hyakimaru, and he decides to go to the Hall of Hell for help. Hyakkimaru and Dororo at this time went after the next demon. During lunch, they met Saporota, who also came to destroy the demon. He wants to take revenge on the demon for his mother, whom he devoured right before his eyes. Saporota showed the place where the demon comes on certain days. There they met the demon Yu. Hyakkimaru began to fight with him, but Saporota attacked him from behind. It turned out that this samurai helps the demon devour travelers because this allows him to forget the shame of losing his mother. Then the demon attacks again and Hyakkimaru and Dororo fall off the cliff. Having come to her senses, Dororo discovered that her hand was caught between the stones, and water was leaking nearby and filling everything around. The water began to rise quickly, and Dororo was almost completely covered with water. At the last moment, Biwamaru appeared, inserted his sword into the stone, and released Dororo, breaking his sword in the process. Afterwards, Hyakkimaru went back to the monster. The demon immediately attacked him, but Hyakkimaru substituted his sword and planted the demon on them. Saporota is shocked by everything that is happening. Saporota remembered the moment when the demon attacked him and his mother. The mother held on to her son, but because of his cowardice, he waved the sword away, which is why he injured her hand and ran away. Arriving at the village, the mother's hand still hung on Sapora's clothes. Because of this moment, everyone began to condemn him. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru damaged half of the demon's head and destroyed it. Then Saporota attacked Hyakkimaru and put his hands on his blades. He was then devoured by the defeated demon, causing him to develop wings and Saporota's body to emerge from his head. When Dororo came to this place, Hyakkimaru damaged all of the demon's limbs and eventually destroyed it. However, after this, part of his body did not return to him. Because of this, Hyakkimaru became very angry. Afterwards, he went to Daigo, saying that his body was there. On the way, the guys are accidentally met by Daigo's assistant. Meanwhile, Keijimitsu was informed of a spreading infection that had already infected several villages, which is why the head ordered the burning of these villages. Also, due to the impending battle against the Asakura clan, all men were conscripted, and horses and steeds were also seized. One of these horses was Midoro, who was taken from Chibi's foal. Daigo's assistant, who saw Hyakkimaru and Dororo, reached Keijimitsu and informed him about this. Tahomaru, having heard this report, suggested to his father that he, as the heir, fight him himself. Keijimitsu agreed, but secretly sent an assistant to help Tahomaru, while he himself gathered an army and went to battle against the Asakura clan. As a result, Tahomaru, Matsu, and Hyogo found Hyakkimaru and injured his hand with their first attack. They began a fierce battle, but during the fight, Hyakkimaru injured Matsu's hand, and then Hyogo's hand. Next, Hyakkimaru scratched Tahomaru's face, but Keijimitsu's assistant suddenly appeared riding on Midoro's booby-trapped horse, and he managed to lift Hyakkimaru and the horse up, after which they fell into a cliff. The assistant reported that he was sent by Keijimitsu to look after Tahomaru. He asked the heir to retreat and return back to the palace, but Tahomaru refused since he wants to destroy Hyakkimaru himself. Then the assistant hit him with a sleeping dart, and Tahomaru went to bed. Then they took Dororo with them and went back to the palace. At this time, a demon took possession of part of the horse's body in the cliff and turned into a fiery horse. Meanwhile, Daigo's assistant was passing by with the captured Dororo and Tahomaru and saw Jukai waiting out the rain under a tree. Already in the palace, all the wounded retreated a little, and it also turned out that Matsu was infected with some kind of disease and she was isolated in her room. Then Nue came to the captive Dororo and released her, and also showed her a secret exit from the palace. But she is worried and therefore, together with Dororo, she went in search of Hyakkimaru. They set off along the river, where they fell into a strong current and capsized. They washed ashore, where they were found by the inhabitants of the nearest village, in which the omnipresent Biwamaru was located. Nui volunteered to help the wounded, and Dororo met Chibi, Midoro's foal. Dororo also said that she thinks that Hyakkimaru can turn into a demon, after which they set out to search for him. At the same time, the infected Matsu escaped from her room, mounted a horse, and went to the Hall of Hell. She invited the 12th demon to take her body and protect the inhabitants of Daigo's country. Tahomaru and Hyoga also came there, and as a result, the demon Azure agrees and restores the hands of his sister and brother, and Tahomaru gets an eye in place of the scratch on his forehead. In addition to this, his lost eye is restored. It turned out that these were Hyakkimaru's eyes, and the restored hands of Mutsu and Hyogo were the hands belonging to Hyakkimaru. At this time, the Asakura clan fights the demon horse Midoro, whose rider is Hyakkimaru. He destroys the warriors and wants Dororo returned to him. Hyakkimaru then encounters the restored Tahomaru and his minions, and they begin to fight. Then Dororo and Nui appeared, but Biwamaru stopped them and said that it was better not to approach this battle. It turned out that in order for Hyakkimaru to regain his hands and eyes, he would need to destroy this trio. Also during this battle, Chibi's foal appeared, and Midoro was distracted by him, which is why Mutsu and Hyogo stuck their swords into her and damaged her, but Midoro managed to destroy her brother and sister, and then Midoro also left for another world. Hyakkimaru's hands returned, since after Mutsu left for another world, the contract with the demon was broken. Having received the hands, he began to run away. Tahomaru went after him, and their battle moved to the swamp, and they began to fight again. Tahomaru then retreats to the palace, and they begin a tough battle there. Dororo, Nui, and Biwamaru also go to the palace. When they reached the palace, Nui entered the palace through a secret passage. Chukai also came to the palace, who, hearing a knock from the wall, opened the door and met Nui there. Meanwhile, in the Hyakkimaru vs. Tahomaru fight, Hyakkimaru was defeated. However, he did not destroy his brother, saying that he was his brother and a man. After this, Tahomaru tore out the demon's eyes so that they returned to Hyakkimaru. At this moment, the floor breaks and demon crystals appear below. Hyakkimaru destroys them and his eyes return, but a burning board falls on him. However, Chukai and Nui appear and protect him from the falling board. Chukai also gives Hyakkimaru a carved figurine. After that, Chukai took Hyakkimaru to the exit and returned to his mother. However, immediately after this, the exit was blocked, and Chukai and his mother were left in the burning palace. Nui immediately ran up to the lying Tahomaru to spend the last minutes of their lives together, because then they burned down along with the palace. At the same time, Kagemitsu was informed that his castle was on fire and that his wife and son were missing. However, he did not react at all and went into battle against the Asakura clan. After a long journey, Dororo and Hyakkimaru went to the village where they were rescued, and Dororo told the men about the hidden money. Hyakkimaru went to check something with his body. He came to the Temple of Hell and met Daigo Kagemitsu there, who invited him to destroy it, but Hyakkimaru refused because his new path would be without destruction. He put the figurine on the floor and left. Kagemitsu realized that if he had not then entered into an agreement with the demons and Hyakkimaru would have become his heir, he would still have been able to make his country prosperous. Then Hyakkimaru went on his way, and Dororo with the village people and her father's money began a new life. If you want to continue, then write about it in the comments.